Hey, this is Sean Glaze with Great Results Team Building. And if you really want to learn how to level up your life and lead your team, you should be listening to the Time to Shine Today podcast with my friend, Scott Ferguson.
Time to Shine Today, Varsity Squad. It is Scott Ferguson, and I had an opportunity to sit down with the culture impactor, is what I would like to call him. He's my good friend, Sean Glaze. He resides up there in Atlanta, Georgia. It's fun. If you listen to our interview, you're going to hear the birds chirping in the background. I think he was outside. I was almost going to have my producer, editor kind of take it out, but I was like, you know what? It has some authenticity to it. So enjoy what he's going to drop on you with knowledge nuggets regarding success and culture and the commitment to a good culture and being open-minded and set that ego aside is key. The knowledge nuggets are huge. So sit back, relax, break out your notebook, because here comes my friend, Sean Glaze. Hey, Time to Shine Today podcast, Varsity Squad. It's Scott Ferguson, and I am super stoked to have a good friend of mine from Atlanta, Georgia, and we're all in this kind of quarantine time. I think it's like day 592 of our quarantine, but I am super privileged to have on my friend, Sean Glaze. And he comes from really a group coaching and leveling up background. So you want every individual in your organization to be a great teammate and take ownership, to lead from where they are. Well, guess what, peeps? Sean inspires people to have fun laughing together so they can have more success working together. His 3 books, The Unexpected Leader, Rapid Teamwork, and The 10 Commandments of Winning Teammates are powerful parables for building and leading great teams. As a successful coach and educator for over 20 years, Sean gained valuable insights into how to develop winning teams and founded Great Results Team Building to share those lessons. While that is some serious credentials, Sean, welcome to the show. Please come on and introduce yourself, but first, tell us your favorite color and why.
Wow, hit me with an unexpected one there, Scott. First, obviously, glad to be on. Favorite color, I would have to say, is blue. Don't know what the psychology is behind that. Maybe somebody at some point will clue me into what that actually says about me, but we'll stick with blue right now.
Awesome. Well, it's a nice, beautiful sky. We got the ocean. I got the Atlantic I'm looking at here to my left. So that's my favorite color too, brother. That's my favorite color too. So let's take us back in let's talk about Sean Glaze and how he has leveled up in maybe the origins of where you started.
Well, a lot like the quarantine we're certainly in and what we're going through, sometimes life throws stuff at you that you don't expect and ends up being a very pleasant journey along the way. So started off, and again, 20 years as a high school literature teacher and basketball coach. And if I had been told, 30 years ago that I was going to be speaking at conferences and working with groups and teams in various industries, I would have probably laughed you out of the room. But it was as a coach that I realized what a lot of your entrepreneurs and listeners probably have realized at one point or another, and that is that success isn't based solely on strategy. Because I had spent so much of my early time as a coach focused upon X's and O's and skills, and did not have anywhere near the success that later I enjoyed once I learned to shift my focus to culture.
Very good. So success isn't always based solely on strategy. So elaborate a little bit on that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was probably, almost a decade into coaching when I realized I had probably been a very bad coach for the first 10 years. And that is at the end of a very difficult season, my very first year as head coach of a women's basketball team at the varsity level in high school. That we come to the end of a season where we only won 5 games and the kids are sitting there in the locker room and kind of faces in their hands after the final loss in the playoffs. And as they get up, they walk out kind of one by one individually. And I had a moment where my assistant says, if we're going to have a better team, we're going to have a whole lot better relationships. And that was honestly, Scott, something that I as a coach had neglected, and something that I found over the last many years that a number of leaders neglect. They were so focused upon strategy and what we want done and how we want it done that we are completely blind to the unbelievable impact that culture has. And culture is those connections and the camaraderie and the commitment that those connections create among and across different departments in the organization, whether it's a group of 3 people, a group of 12 people, or a group of 1,200, turns out that X's and O's are certainly important, and strategy is what you want done. Culture determines how well your people do it and how engaged they are in the midst of it.
So it's a culture impact. That is amazing. Hey, squad, did you hear that? That better relationships equal better teams. It's not always about the strategy. If you don't have that cohesiveness, like we're always saying here at Time to Shine, to be able to work together as a team, you can throw kind of strategy out the door, right, Sean?
Yeah, and that's something, again, I'm probably not sharing anything. This is, not, awe-inspiring new information.
Sean, everything that we say here is regurgitated from other people. I love it. I had to write that down immediately that you said that, because that's inspiring. The way you said it, you put it in a way that, of course, maybe Jim Rohn or someone you might have passed it down and you picked it up, but still you put it in a way that it made me write it down right away. So I don't do that too much. That's amazing. I hope all the listeners out there wrote that down. The better relationships equal better teams. They have a culture impact also, and success isn't always based on strategy. So, Sean, what was your aha moment that got you wanting to say, I'm going to want to get in front of, 10 people or 100 people or 1,000 people and help their companies level up?
Well, one of the things I'm sure you found with your podcast is when you find ideas that lead to success, one of the things that hopefully good people do is they find a way to share that success with others to hopefully make their path a little bit less dangerous. And so when I experienced some success after spending an entire off season and a whole lot of the rest of my coaching career searching for ideas to build cohesiveness and camaraderie and chemistry, and what does it mean to actually build a culture in a locker room, I realized that when we started with our teams having far more success because of our emphasis on culture and relationships over just rebounds, that maybe that was something that could help other teams. So I started reaching out to other athletic programs and had some success sharing with them. And then I started reaching out, my background being in teaching and doing a lot of pre-planning events with school faculties. And I recognized that the same lessons that helped my team in the locker room could help teachers in their classrooms, could help salespeople, or people in various industries, whether it's medical or construction or banking. And it's been a really amazing path for me to see how the experiential lessons and takeaways and the insights and the activities that I share in the midst of, whether it's a conference keynote or customized team building event, have really helped leaders and teammates in so many industries really benefit from the success that a focus on culture brings.
That's beautiful. So what makes a great coach, in your opinion?
Well, I think a great coach, hopefully, because there are a lot of different X's and O's in the world,
sure,
and there are a lot of different ways you can go about strategy. What I found is culture is going to be, or commitment to a culture is going to be determined by a connection to 2 things. First, you got to connect your people to a compelling common goal. Have they clarified why they're there? What are they there to accomplish together? Not just individual goals that are going to bring you to the job to make sure you're taking care of your family and your individual things, but how do I, even more importantly, get you to connect your efforts to something that's larger and more significant than just yourself? And the second connection that I think that, again, is oftentimes so overlooked is a connection to the people that you're looking to accomplish it with. What are those relationships? What are the personalities and the strengths and the individuals around you? And how do those connections, not just in terms of a goal, but in terms of relationships, end up defining what we're doing together as a team?
That's beautiful. So I love those, the compelling, basically in the why and the compelling, or the connection to the people. But so it sounds to me like you're probably asking some pretty powerful questions during that first kind of get to know each other with whoever you're going to be speaking in front of and coaching. And during that time, are you kind of looking for their blind spot of what they need help with? Or are you letting that come to you after the questions you're asked?
Yeah, I think with any good coach, or as I'm talking to prospective clients about the possibility of a keynote or an event for their people, one of the things I'll mention is, culture, which is a pretty common term that's thrown around these days. Culture is something a lot of people are interested in, but not everybody understands. And I think culture is a lot simpler than most people try and make it. You can probably find 10,000 definitions for culture if you were to Google it. Culture, my opinion, is something very simple. Culture is just the behaviors that are allowed and repeated in your organization, whether it's in a locker room, whether it's in a boardroom, whether it's in a sales room, whether it's in a classroom. Your culture, whether it's professionally or even personally at home, your culture are the behaviors that are allowed and repeated. And what I've found is, Scott, and what your listeners have probably found, is that culture, if that's behaviors, your behaviors are always a result of the beliefs that you walk into a team with. Your beliefs are always a result of your awareness. And your awareness is always going to be determined by the experiences that you've had. So whether you're Catholic or Protestant, whether you're Democrat or Republican, those beliefs are going to lead to certain behaviors, but those beliefs are based upon the experiences and the awareness that those experiences gave. So one of the most powerful things about my keynotes or my customized programs in terms of doing some of the team building that I started with is, how can I give you a relevant and engaging experience that's going to improve your awareness? And if that changes your beliefs and your understanding of your circumstances and how what you do impacts others, that's going to ultimately change behaviors. And that's how people get better cultures.
Wow. That is amazing. So you really dig deep. You really kind of become empathetic and kind of see out of their eyes to see where they're at, and then kind of move them in an area to way of cohesiveness and building together. And okay, yeah, am I right? Or am I
Absolutely.
Getting that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And those initial questions that you would ask the event planner or the leader that's planning an event, those initial questions are basically to find out what part of your culture, what part of your organization has been neglected, because most of the time it's not X's and O's.
Right.
Neglect kind of being that first step on the path to failure. If I can hopefully make you a little bit more aware of what's being neglected and what needs your attention, whether it's goals or relationships or setting more clear expectations or providing better accountability or doing a better job of recognition or communication, all of those things ultimately come together to create what is the rapid teamwork in one of my books.
Oh, wow. Okay. And so if I'm at a networking event, which I do a lot of, well, not so much anymore, but when I'm out and I'm pressing some flesh and meeting some people,
right, what
are the key words? How do I know if someone that I'm talking to would be, or anybody that's listening, if they're talking to somebody, would be a great referral for great results team building?
Are you leading a team or are you part of a team? Yeah, I think that, ultimately, and what you find is every team has issues. And if I can help and be a resource as a coach and just kind of share some good questions to lead you down a path to make some better decisions, and ultimately, and you know this as well, it's not the ideas that change culture. It's not ideas or insights that are going to improve your team. It's what you do with them as a leader.
Sure.
So the key is for your people to be better teammates, or for you to be a better leader, to have that better team. What are you doing with those insights, and how can you turn them into relevant and actionable behaviors a week or a month or a year after the event? And those are the things that I think make it most impactful.
That's amazing. Yeah. So you're taking their model that they're already using and seeing where you can start putting processes in place for things to be allowed or repeated to equal a better culture in a sense, correct?
Yeah, and I think that as a leader, if I can lead you to a better understanding and awareness of what parts of your organization need that attention, then those are things we can address in an event, or those are sometimes things that you can actually take action on to make sure you're doing a better job of clarifying expectations, or building opportunities for intentional relationships, or inspiring a little bit more empathy to build accountability. They're all obviously parts of that puzzle.
Love that. Love it. So let's get in our DeLorean, Back to Future style, and let's go back. Let's talk to the 22-year-old Sean Glaze. What kind of knowledge nuggets are you dropping on that, Sean, with the experience and the awareness and everything that you've been talking about now? What are you dropping on him?
Oh my goodness, I would probably be too hard-headed and egotistical to listen to my older self at that point.
Sure, we all would.
That's one of the things I think that I find with a lot of leaders is you go into a leadership position full of what you think is confidence, and turns out when you look back that it was probably a little bit more arrogance. And if confidence is thinking you can help, arrogance is thinking you don't need help. And so I think the number one thing I would tell myself as a younger coach or leader is to be a whole lot more coachable and to look for opportunities to be more honest, to see myself in the mirror a little bit more clearly, to find people who can be mentors and make me a little bit more aware of those things that I'm neglecting as a leader, so I can help the people around me develop a little bit more quickly and find success themselves.
That's amazing. You know, it's funny. I just finished a chapter in my book that I borrowed the title of it from a friend of mine, Leah Woodford, amazing woman. She has a company called Smart Femme. It's like kind of like a women's driven thing, but she came on for an interview, and the part in the book is get your ask in gear. And like the younger person, I would be like, ask as many questions. And you just kind of said that, be bold and ask and set down that cockiness, if you will. I was the same way. You know, you couldn't tell me anything when I was 22, but with what you have and how you're building teams and your success, I had to ask you that question, you know, so, which is amazing. So with you working with these companies, is there any good question? I've been wondering how to ask this to you. Is there any good question that you wish people would ask you but never do?
People would ask me that never do.
Because you're always trying to pull information out of them so you can set up their, lack of a better term, their plan of attack, their strategy to be able to build that culture. Is there anything you wish they would come and ask you? It's a tough question. I ask myself that every time I talk to somebody. Man, I wish they would have asked me this, but, you know.
Yeah, well, I think big picture wise, you know, the question is, you know, how can I be a better leader? Because ultimately that's going to lead to other questions. That's what good questions do, is they lead you down that rabbit hole of some deeper questions. And if you stay curious and you stay engaged with helping somebody to address their specific issues, you find a whole lot more success than that one size fits all. And so I think, you know, if there's one question I would like for me to continue to ask myself as a leader, and I'd like leaders to ask themselves, it's what part of my leadership led to this result. And if we want great results, we want to have a little bit of a greater focus upon what am I doing as a leader to influence my team into those behaviors.
Love it.
But as far as what others, you know, would hopefully ask me, you know, honestly, it's, you know, what could I do to be a better leader? And then to allow me to maybe ask them about their circumstances so we can provide a customized path and plan for them to actually influence their team the way that that specific group of individuals needs to improve.
Love it. So how do you get around that? Okay, so you might have a CEO that said, man, I'm bringing in Sean Glaze from Great Results Team Building. He's going to come and talk to us. And then the CEO's on top. So you have people that are under him. They're the ones that are probably feeling like they're on the hot seat because they're bringing you in to turn them around. That's just the reality of it, man. I've been brought into companies as well, okay? I'm curious to know how you handle that individual.
Well, I think the first thing is when you mention top down, I think that's something you're continually seeing a shift in basically every marketplace, is the idea of top down leadership. Certainly you have to have roles and you have to have responsibilities, but I think my job as the leader is what can I do to serve and to make the jobs of those others in the organization better? How can I be a better teammate from where I'm at? And so I think the number one thing that a leader can do is to have one-on-ones. And as a basketball coach, you know, that kind of being my background, I thought one-on-ones was a competitive situation where you put kids, you know, in front of the goal and let them play.
Right.
And you learn as a coach. And what I did later in my career, what made our culture that much more strong, is at the beginning and in the middle and at the end of our seasons, I would have one-on-ones with our athletes. And I think that those one-on-one meetings not only help to build those relationships we talk about, but they do help leaders to clarify, you know, what can I do to serve you in your individual goals, and how can we connect you and those goals you have with what our organizational goals are? So again, you have those two major connections that really do drive everything else in terms of teamwork.
Love it. So let's take I'm sorry, I was writing there. I wrote down what you just said. So let's take your cell phone out of the equation, and your laptop and your iPad. What are 3 things Sean cannot live without?
Well, I was a literature teacher, Scott, so I've got a library full of books,
Nice.
and so I think a handful of good books is certainly one that I would struggle in during quarantine.
Mm-hmm.
Certainly we're connected and we're keeping up with social media and reaching out and checking in on family and friends, but to have a book to get through every couple of days is certainly something that I've appreciated. Definitely a partner, and so my wife is somebody that has been tremendous. She's actually a nurse, so grateful for her for a number of different reasons. But personally, obviously, she's and her encouragement. This is something you find with every teammate. Hopefully, your spouse is a great teammate.
Right.
I think
Absolutely.
That entrepreneurs and their people, how can I be a better encourager or supporter of those things that are important to the people around me? So I think books. I think somebody to love and care for and encourage and hopefully inspire you to be a little bit more than otherwise you would have.
Love it.
And then maybe a mountain to climb. Going for hikes has been nice, but I think that as leaders, our job is to look for mountains for our team to climb and to give them the tools and the inspiration to do it well.
Love it. All right, man. So you seem very grounded with the books, wife, and the nature and whatnot. So, and you're passionate about building teams and cohesiveness and culture. So what is your definition of a life well lived?
Wow. A life well lived. Hopefully to have defined a purpose and to seek and hopefully eventually achieve most of what that purpose was defined as. The purpose of our life is to give us something to strive toward, to find that mountain that we want to climb. And if we find success, hopefully climbing another mountain. But a life well lived is not just that individual success and achievement, but hopefully the opportunity to develop and inspire others to do the same along the way.
Love it. That's a perfect. It's almost scripted, but you say it like it's not scripted, but I can tell you live it, which is amazing. So we're going to move into our level up lightning round. You and I can talk 15, 20 minutes on each one of these questions, but Chet will kill me, my producer. So, but like 5 seconds on each one of these. There's only 5 or 6 questions. You ready?
Ready.
All right. What's the best leveling up advice you've ever received?
Listen to smart people.
Share one of your personal habits that contributes to your success.
I would say reading.
So other than your own website, greatresultsteambuilding.net, and of course, timetoshinetoday.com, my shameless plug, what's another website you like to go to inform yourself or level up?
Wow, a website to go to. You know what? That would be difficult to define just one, honestly. I find myself constantly, surfing through, like probably most of your people. You've got that kind of daily group of emails or websites that you check in for news and for updates and for inspiration. I'll tell you somebody that I think does a fabulous job in the leadership space is if you go to leadershipfreak.com, I think he's tremendous.
Good.
I think obviously, just in terms of some of the speakers I've had the opportunity to be around, people like a Gene Greisman or a Waldo Waldman or a Dan Thurman. There are a number of people in NSA, National Speakers Association, that have been really huge influences on me as I've grown. And so to have the opportunity to do that for others would be fantastic. And I think that Chet's upset with me at this point.
Okay, you're a reader. I don't want the flavor of the week. I don't want what you're reading now. What's your book that comes at the top of your mind that has really impacted your life?
I remember putting together a list of 16 books for each of my kids to read when they were 16. And on every single one of those lists was How to Win Friends and Influence.
Dale,
that's
awesome. Beautiful. So what's your favorite charity or organization you like to give your time and or money to?
Oh, great question. My sister-in-law passed away from melanoma a number of years ago. And so we actually did a race in Augusta, Georgia for 5 years following her death to support the Melanoma Foundation. So Miles for Melanoma.
Sorry to hear that, but that's great that you're doing it. So last question. What is your favorite decade of music? 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s?
Oh, 80s and 90s for sure. Probably 80s just because that was me kind of coming through high school and starting college.
Me too. I love it. Love it. So, Sean, as we wind down, let's leave the Time to Shine Today squad and listeners one knowledge nugget that you want them to take with them.
If you want a better team, you've got to be a better leader. And there are specific and actionable steps that can be repeated in any industry to build a better team.
Love it. I love that. Folks, I'm going to put all of his links to all of his social and his website in the show notes. But Sean, how can everybody find you? What's the best way for them to find
Scott. You? Well, again, you'll always share in the social media. I'm at Lead Your Team on Twitter, pretty active there. You can find me online at greatresultsteambuilding.com. And one of the things that I would love to be able to give your listeners as a takeaway, obviously, if they wanted a copy of one of the books, the print versions are available on Amazon and via my website. But for those that are listening who want to be a winning teammate, I'd love to be able to give them a free download if you'd like.
Which book? I think you have 3 of them, right?
Right. So for the 10 Commandments of Winning Teammates, if they were just to take their phone and they were to text the word teamwork to the number 33777, just the word teamwork to 33777, they'll actually receive a text back and information they can follow there to download the complete audio version of that book. And if I can be a resource for them as leaders moving forward, I'd be thrilled. And thank you so much for having me.
Oh, that's amazing. Wow, squad, we just had some serious knowledge nuggets dropped on us by my friend Sean here. My takeaways, a lot of them were success isn't always based solely on strategy. Better relationships equal better teams. You have to have a culture impact. Culture equals basically something that's being allowed or repeated in your organization. And you want to bring somebody in to level up that organization. Sean is your guy. Sean seems humble, which I think he is very much. Unless you get him competitive, I think then he'll step up his game there. I think we know that Sean works hard. He levels up his health. He levels up his wealth because he's always shining. And Sean, thank you so much for coming on. You're amazing. You're part of our squad now. You can't go anywhere, brother.
It's been a privilege. Thanks so much, Scott.
You bet. Hey, thanks so much for listening to this episode of Time to Shine Today podcast. Proudly brought to you by Sutter & Nugent Real Estate Excellence, who can be reached at 561-249-7266 and online at www.sutterandnugent.com. If you are a business owner or professional who would like to be interviewed on Time to Shine Today, please visit timetoshinetoday.com/guest. If you like this episode, please subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you get your podcasts. There's a link in the show notes to our website. Also there, you will see our recommended resources. We hope that you will support our show by supporting them. If you like what you've been listening to, it'd be great if you could just give us a 5-star rating and tell your friends how to subscribe while you're at it. I'm your host, Scott Ferguson, and until next time, let's level up. It's our time to shine.